In the heart of KwaZulu-Natal, where rivers roar and secrets sleep beneath the water, villagers whisper the same name in fear, Ndoni Yamanzi. They say she is the most beautiful woman a man could ever lay eyes on, but those who fall for her never live to tell the tale. Some call her a spirit, others a curse. All agree on one thing: to meet her is to meet death. But one young man, Vusi, knows nothing of the truth. Weak in the eyes of his people, desperate to prove himself, his fate collides with hers in a way no one could have imagined. And when love dares to bloom where vengeance has reigned for centuries, the question is no longer about who Ndoni truly is, but whether love can break a curse or whether it will destroy them both. This is the legend of Ndoni Yamanzi, the curse of the river mermaid. Before we begin, if you love powerful African folklore and unforgettable storytelling, make sure to subscribe, share this story with someone who loves legends, and tell us in the comments, do you believe love can truly break a curse? Your support helps us bring more tales like this to life. Whispers by the river. KwaZulu was a land where the mountains met the sea, where rolling green hills kissed the horizon, and where rivers cut their silver paths through villages that had stood for generations. The people of the valleys lived with stories as old as the stones beneath their feet, stories that were sung, whispered, and sometimes shouted around fires, carrying warnings to those too young to know danger and too foolish to listen. Among these stories, none was spoken with more trembling breath than the tale of Ndoni Yamanzi. At sunrise, the river looked harmless, beautiful even. Women walked in groups, balancing clay pots on their heads, laughter ringing across the water as they fetched the day's supply. Children played by the banks, their shouts loud as they splashed one another, their bare feet leaving prints in the wet mud. Fishermen cast their nets with the easy rhythm of men who had known this work since boyhood, their voices blending into work songs that floated down the current. But when the sun sank and shadows grew long, the river changed. The same villagers who had laughed by its banks in the morning would hurry home with buckets filled, never daring to linger. Old women, stooped and sharp-eyed, tugged their grandchildren by the arms if they dallied, hissing warnings under their breath. Do not let the river see you at night. It has eyes, it has teeth, and it has her. Her. The word alone was enough to send shivers down a spine. The rumor of her name. The people of the valleys did not agree on many things, but they agreed on one. The river belonged to something older than them, older than the hills. Some called her a spirit, others a curse. Some whispered she was a goddess in disguise, testing men's hearts. But most knew her as Ndoni Yamanzi, the woman of the water. No one dared to speak her name aloud after dusk for fear she would hear. But children, bold in their curiosity, whispered it to one another in secret dares. Boys would boast, "I will call for her. I will bring her from the reeds." Girls would giggle nervously and slap their arms, begging them not to tempt fate. The stories varied, but the endings never changed. A man would wander to the river at night, sometimes to wash, sometimes to drink, sometimes to follow the soft sound of laughter carried on the mist. He would return home, smiling faintly, his eyes strange, as if touched by a dream no one else could see. He would say nothing of what he had found. And then, by dawn, he would be dead. No wound, no sickness, no warning. His body would be discovered stiff, his skin clammy, his eyes open wide in terror or wonder. Widows wailed, mothers tore their clothes, and always the whispers began, Ndoni. He saw her. She came for him. Her beginning. What no one knew, what no tale fully told, was that Ndoni had not always been a spirit. Long ago, before the whispers, before the river carried her name, she had been flesh and blood, a woman of the hills. Her laughter was said to have rung brighter than the cowbells at the kraal. Her hair was thick and black, her skin warm and glowing under the African sun. She had been loved once desperately, foolishly, by a man whose tenderness soured into cruelty. He promised her the world, then chained her in fear. His love became a fist, his care a blade. The night the river claimed her, she had crawled to its edge, broken, betrayed, dying at the hands of the man she had trusted above all others. In her last breath, she had cried out, not to people, but to the unseen spirits she had heard of in whispers as a child. She called not for mercy, but for vengeance. The spirits answered. The waters rose, swallowing her blood, her pain, her very name. Her body dissolved into salt and current. When she rose again, she was no longer the girl who had loved too deeply. She was something else, something sharper. A mermaid, some would say. A goddess of vengeance, others believed. Her beauty was no longer a gift but a trap. Her love, no longer tender but deadly. Her kiss, death itself. And so Ndoni Yamanzi was born, the people's fear. Generations passed, but the fear remained. Even as new children were born and the world changed around them, the river was still forbidden after dark. Women fetching water hurried home before the sun touched the hills. Men who claimed to see beautiful strangers by the reeds were met with silence, suspicion, or even fear. No one trusted such stories. No one admitted to longing for the woman of the water. Still, the rumors persisted. She is real, whispered an old fisherman with trembling hands, his eyes darting as if expecting to be overheard. My cousin saw her once, skin like moonlight, hair like waves. She called his name. The next morning, he was dead. Others shook their heads. Stories. Tales to keep boys from wandering. Do you see her here now? No. Then let the dead bury the dead. But when night fell, even the skeptics locked their doors tightly and muttered prayers into the dark. The river's shadow. The waterfall near the village was the most feared of all. Its white spray caught the sunlight in the day, making rainbows for children to chase. But in the dawn hours between midnight and the rooster's cry, the falls belonged to her. It was said that if you listened closely, you could hear her singing beneath the roar, soft, haunting, like the cry of a woman both mourning and tempting, a voice that made a man's chest ache with longing. Few dared to test the truth. Those who did never returned. And yet, despite the warnings, despite the deaths, curiosity lingered. For in the human heart, fear and desire are never far apart. The silent watcher. Ndoni herself rarely revealed her form in full. She lingered in the shadows, in the mist, in the corner of an eye. To some, she was only a silhouette in the reeds, combing her long hair with fingers white as shells. To others, she was a laugh in the mist, sweet and mocking. But when she chose to appear fully, gloriously, no man could resist. Her beauty was not of this world. Her face seemed carved from the dreams of every lover a man had ever yearned for. Her skin shimmered as if kissed by starlight, and her eyes, deep, endless, promised both love and death. She was the most beautiful woman in the world, and the most feared, the boy who would change everything. No one yet knew it, but all of this, the whispers, the fear, the centuries of death, was only the prelude to a story that had not yet begun. For in one small homestead, not far from the river, lived a boy named Vusi, a boy the villagers called weak, a boy who would one day stand at the edge of the falls, broken and bruised, and fall into the arms of the woman everyone feared. A boy who would learn that sometimes weakness hides the kind of strength no one else can see. And a mermaid who would learn that even vengeance can bend beneath the weight of love. The river was waiting. Ndoni was waiting. And Vusi's story was about to begin. The boy who was too weak. The sun rose slowly over the hills of KwaZulu-Natal, spilling gold over the thatched huts of the village. Roosters crowed. Smoke from morning fires curled into the air as women stirred porridge in clay pots, their voices carrying in song, while children scampered half-dressed, chasing one another in the dust. Among these huts lived Vusi, son of Zwid. He was not the strongest boy in the village, not the quickest nor the bravest, at least not in the eyes of others. To them, he was frail, too thin, too gentle. His arms did not bulge like those of boys who spent their afternoons wrestling in the kraal. His voice did not command attention like the brash laughter of Themba and his friends. He was quiet, thoughtful. His joy came not from competition, but from care, especially for the cows that belonged to his father. A father's disappointment. Zuaid was a proud man. His back was straight despite his years, his voice loud in the council of elders, his cattle thick and well fed. He had built his homestead with strong hands, and he expected the same of his son. But when he looked at Vusi, his jaw often tightened. You herd the cows well, he admitted one morning, watching Vusi rub ointment into the leg of a limping calf. But cows do not make a man strong. A man must fight, must hunt, must show he can protect his family. What will you do when the world demands more than kindness from you, Vusi? Vusi bowed his head. I do what I can, Baba. Zuaid's sigh was heavy. He turned away, muttering loud enough for his son to hear. You do not do enough. The words stung, though Vusi did not show it. He never showed it. Instead, he pressed his face to the calf's warm side, whispering softly as the animal chewed contentedly. Among the cows, he was never weak. He was enough. The square squad. Not everyone was content to let Vusi be. The village boys, especially those his age, saw him as easy prey. They had formed a little gang of their own, 4 boys who called themselves the Square Squad Themba. The leader with shoulders broad as a young bull. Sifiso, quick with both fists and insults. Bekani, slow but cruel. And Jabu the youngest, eager to prove himself. Why they called themselves the Square Squad, no one quite knew. Perhaps it was because they were 4. Perhaps because they believed they owned every corner of the grazing fields. The name made little sense to anyone else, but to them it was a banner of power. And for as long as Vusi could remember, they had made his life harder. They shoved him when no one watched. They tripped him, mocked him, took food from his basket. Some days they chased his cows to scatter them, forcing him to spend hours gathering them again. And yet Vusi never fought back. Not really. He had learned that resistance only brought worse punishment. Until one day something in him shifted, the waterfall meadow. It was early, the mist still clinging to the hills. Vusi had risen before dawn, yawning as he gathered his herd and set out for the best grazing spot, the meadow by the great waterfall. The path wound past rocks slick with dew, through clusters of acacia trees alive with birdsong. His cows trudged behind him, their bells clinking softly. The meadow by the falls was a treasure. The grass there was thick, lush, and always green from the spray. The water was clear, cold, and sweet. But more than that, the place was beautiful. The waterfall thundered into a pool below, sending rainbows into the air whenever the sun rose high. It was a spot every herder coveted. But it was also dangerous. Everyone in the village knew the stories. The water spirits claimed the falls between midnight and dawn. Anyone foolish enough to be near at those hours risked their soul. But now, with the sun well above the horizon, Vusi felt safe. He settled on a rock, watching his cows graze happily. For once, he felt proud. He had woken early, beaten the other boys, secured the best spot. He smiled, letting the spray from the falls cool his face. But peace, for Vusi, was always fragile. The bullies arrived. Themba and his square squad appeared before long, swaggering through the grass, their laughter loud and mocking. Well, look here, Themba called, striding toward him. The weak one thinks he's clever, eh? He thinks he can take our spot. Vusi's heart sank. He had expected them, but a small part of him had hoped today would be different. My cows are here, he said quietly, standing to face them. I woke early. The meadow is mine today. The boys laughed. Sifiso sneered. Yours? What do you own, Vusi? You own nothing. Even your father wishes you were stronger. Bekani shoved him hard in the chest. Move before we move you. For a moment, Vusi considered giving in. It was what he always did. Better to step aside. Better to let them have their way. But something inside him rebelled. Perhaps it was the memory of his father's words, you do not do enough. Perhaps it was the pride that had swelled in him that morning, seeing his cows contend in the best grazing. Whatever it was, he heard himself say, no. The boys froze. Then laughter exploded from their throats. No? Themba echoed, circling him like a lion testing prey. The weak one thinks he can fight? I'm not moving, Vusi repeated, his voice shaking but firm. Themba's grin widened. Then we'll move you. The fight. They surrounded him, shoving, jeering, calling him names. Vusi shoved back once, then again, surprising even himself. The look in his eyes was different, not fear, not submission, but defiance. That defiance enraged them. Sifiso struck first, a fist to Vusi's jaw. Pain blossomed white, but Vusi swung back wildly, catching Bikani's chin. The blow was clumsy, but it landed. For a heartbeat, silence fell. Then the fight erupted. 4 against 1. Fists flew, kicks landed, dust rose around them. Vusi fell, scrambled up, fell again. Blood filled his mouth, his ribs ached, his vision blurred. Still, he refused to yield. You should have stayed weak, Themba growled, driving his shoulder into Vusi's chest. Vusi staggered backward, his foot slipping on the slick grass near the edge of the falls. His arms flailed. The roar of the water swallowed his cry. And then he was gone. The fall, the world spun into chaos. The rush of water filled his ears, drowning every sound. Rocks struck his side, his back, his skull. He gasped, choking on the cold river. His limbs flailed weakly. He sank, the light fading above him. This is it, he thought dimly. This is how I die. But then arms. Soft, strong, otherworldly arms caught him, held him. A voice, distant but clear, whispered in the rushing dark. Words he could not understand but felt deep in his chest. And then nothing. The aftermath. When Vusi opened his eyes, the sun was low. The world spun. He lay sprawled on the riverbank, drenched, shivering, blood on his temple. His head ached. His body felt both heavy and light. Voices called in the distance. Torches flickered through the trees. His father. His mother. Villagers searching. Vusi! He tried to rise, staggered, nearly fell again. His parents reached him first, pulling him into their arms, half scolding, half weeping. You could have drowned, his mother cried, pressing her hands to his face. Where were you? His father demanded, his voice sharp with fear disguised as anger. But Vusi could not answer, for even as they dragged him home, his mind was not on the river, not on his bruises, not on the beating he had taken. It was on a face, a pale, glowing face beneath the water. Eyes like the deep ocean, hair that floated like waves. A woman. But as soon as he tried to hold on to the memory, it slipped away, leaving him confused and shaken. Unspoken secrets. The square squad said nothing. They did not tell the village what had happened. Fear sealed their mouths. If Vusi had died, they would have been blamed. If he had lived, then perhaps the river itself had spared him, and no one wanted to admit they had played a hand in angering the spirits. And so the village believed Vusi had slipped. A foolish accident, nothing more. But Vusi knew better. Someone had caught him. Someone had saved him. Whispers in the mist. The morning after his fall was slow and heavy. The village awoke, as it always did, the pounding of pestles against grain, the smell of wood smoke curling from the cooking huts, children's laughter ringing in the kraal. But in Vusi's homestead, the air was different. His head throbbed, his ribs ached, and though his mother's broth soothed his throat, nothing could quiet the memory that gnawed at him. The face. He had seen her, if only for a heartbeat, pale, luminous, beautiful beyond words. The face beneath the water. He told himself it was a dream, a trick of his battered mind, and yet he could not shake it. The weight of silence. His father Zweid sat by the fire, silent as he sharpened his spear. The scrape of stone on metal was steady, deliberate. Vusi knew the rhythm well. It was his father's way of thinking, of wrestling with words he did not speak. Finally, Zweid broke the silence. You are lucky, he said flatly. Vusi nodded, though the words stung. Lucky, he had nearly died. You are weak, but the river spared you, Zweid continued, his eyes hard as flint. Do not waste that chance. A man must learn. Next time, fight with strength, not foolishness. Vusi swallowed, his lips pressing together. He wanted to argue, wanted to say that he had fought, that for the first time he had stood his ground. But he had lost, and in his father's eyes, losing was the same as weakness. I will do better, he whispered instead. His father grunted, unsatisfied but unwilling to press further. His mother, Numbala, touched his shoulder gently. Rest, my son. The body heals, but so does the heart. You frightened me. I prayed the ancestors would return you to me. Her eyes, wet with tears, told him what her words did not. She had feared losing him more than anything. The gossip of the village. News spread quickly. By midday, everyone knew Vusi had fallen at the waterfall. The story grew taller with every tongue that carried it. He slipped, said one. He was pushed, whispered another. No, the water spirits caught him. That boy has been touched by something not of this world. Old women clicked their tongues, muttering prayers. Young men shook their heads, half in pity, half in scorn. Some laughed, saying Vusi had simply proven his weakness yet again. Others lowered their voices, whispering that anyone who came that close to death and returned was not the same as before. Children were the worst. They followed him when he limped to the riverbank later that week, chanting, "Weak Vusi, weak Vusi," fell in the water. The spirits set him free. He clenched his jaw, ignoring them, though his cheeks burned with shame. The unseen eyes. What Vusi did not know was that he was not alone. From beneath the water, in the shadowed depths of the falls, Ndoni watched. She had not meant to catch him that day. She had been drifting in the current, her thoughts lost in old wounds, when his body struck the water entangled with hers. His life had spilled into her arms, fragile and flickering like a candle in the wind. She should have let him go, should have let the river claim him as it had claimed so many others. But something she could not name it had stayed her hand. Instead of dragging him into the deep, instead of pressing her lips to his and ending his breath forever, she had borne him to the surface. And now she could not stop watching him. Each day as he limped to the meadow to tend his cows, she followed, unseen in the water's shimmer. When he bent to touch the grass, when he lifted his face to the sun, when he sighed at the weight of his father's disappointment, she was there, her heart aching with a pain she did not understand. Dreams of water. That night, Vusi dreamed. He stood again at the waterfall, the spray cold on his face. Mist curled around him, soft as fingers. He heard laughter low, sweet, haunting. A woman's laughter. He turned, and there she was. Her skin glowed pale as the moon. Her hair fell in waves as black as midnight. Her eyes so deep he thought he might drown in them. She smiled, and the world tilted. "Vusi," she whispered, though he did not know how she knew his name. He stepped closer, unable to resist, his heart hammering. But when he reached for her, the river surged, dragging him down, filling his lungs. He woke gasping, his sheets damp with sweat. His mother hurried to him, pressing cool water to his lips. "Another nightmare?" she asked softly. He nodded, unable to speak the truth. For how could he explain that his nightmare had been beautiful, not terrifying? That even as it suffocated him, part of him longed to return to it, a secret obsession. In the days that followed, Vusi could not stay away from the falls. He told his parents it was for the cows, for the grass, for the water, but in his heart he knew the truth. He was searching. Each time he approached the meadow, his eyes darted to the pool below. He scanned the reeds, the rocks, the shimmer of the current. He told himself he was foolish, there was nothing there, and yet he lingered, waiting for a glimpse of her. Sometimes he thought he saw movement, a shadow in the water, a ripple where none should be. Once he swore he heard her laughter, faint and echoing beneath the roar of the falls. The more he tried to forget, the more he remembered. The warning. One evening as he lingered by the river, old Gogo Tandi, the village elder, approached. She was bent with age, her face a map of lines, but her eyes were sharp. "You should not be here, boy," she said, tapping her stick against the ground. "The river does not forget. It gives nothing freely." Vusi swallowed, bowing his head. "I only watch the cows, Gogo." She leaned closer, her voice dropping. "I was young once. I knew a boy, strong and handsome, who came here too often. He said he heard a woman's song in the mist. One morning, he was found cold in his bed. Do you know what the people said?" Vusi hesitated. "They said, Ndoni took him." The old woman nodded gravely. "Be careful, Vusi. Curiosity kills faster than a spear. If you see her, do not look twice. Run." Her warning lodged in his chest, heavy and cold. But even as he walked home that night, her words echoing in his ears, another voice lingered deeper still, the laughter in his dreams, the whisper of his name. The choice of the heart. Vusi tried. He truly did. He threw himself into chores, into tending the cattle, into obeying his father. He helped his mother in the fields, carried firewood, listened to the elders' stories. But nothing filled the hollow inside him. Every path led back to the waterfall. Every thought circled back to her. And so, though fear gnawed at him, though every warning screamed at him to stop, he chose to follow the pull in his heart. To the place where the mist kissed the grass. To the pool where shadows stirred. To the eyes he could not forget. And in the depths of the water, Ndoni smiled. For she knew, though neither of them could yet admit it, that their stories had already tangled. His fate and hers were no longer separate. The river had bound them. The spirits had seen to that. And soon both their lives would change forever. And he could not rest until he knew who. The water remembers. The days after Gogo Thandi's warning were restless ones. Vusi woke with the sunrise, tended to his father's cows, returned at dusk, but his heart was no longer his own. It belonged to the river. It belonged to the mist at the waterfall, to the haunting dreams that followed him even into waking hours. No matter how many times he told himself to stay away, his feet betrayed him. His path bent again and again toward the meadow by the falls, the return to the falls. The morning was warm, the sky a dome of endless blue. Birds sang in the acacia trees as Vusi led the cattle along the familiar trail. His ribs still ached faintly from the fight, but he ignored the pain. He told himself he was only going where the grass was thickest, where his father's herd would grow fat and strong. But as the thunder of the falls grew louder, his heart thumped harder. He stopped at the edge, staring down into the pool. Sunlight scattered across the spray, throwing rainbows into the mist. The water foamed and churned, beautiful and dangerous all at once. And though the air was filled with bird song and rushing water, he thought just faintly he heard a sound beneath it all. A laugh. He shivered. "Just my imagination," he muttered. But his eyes lingered on the water far longer than they should have. The square squad returns. His uneasy peace was broken by laughter not soft, not sweet, but sharp and mocking. "Well, well, look who crawled back." Vusi turned. The square squad stood behind him, their arms crossed, their faces twisted with scorn. Themba smirked, his broad chest puffed out like a cock ready to fight. "You didn't learn the first time, weak one," he sneered. "You nearly drowned, and here you are again." Vusi clenched his fists. "I'm here for the cows. Leave me alone." Sifiso barked a laugh. "Listen to him. He thinks he owns the meadow now. Maybe the river spit him out, but next time it won't." Jabu, the youngest, leaned close to Bekani, whispering loud enough for all to hear. Maybe he was saved by her. The others froze. Even Themba's grin faltered. Bekani spat. "Don't speak foolishness." But the damage was done. The word hung in the air, heavy, dangerous. Her. They all knew who he meant, the one no one dared to name. Hofer. The weight of rumors. Themba stepped closer, his shadow falling across Vusi. "If you've seen her," he said low, his tone sharper than before, "you're already dead. Maybe not today, Maybe not tomorrow, but no man escapes her. Vusi swallowed hard, his throat dry. I haven't seen anyone, he lied. The boys watched him a moment longer, then laughed cruelly. Keep telling yourself that, Themba said. We'll see how long you last. They left, their mocking fading into the trees. But the seed was planted. Their words gnawed at him. If he had truly seen her, if the pale face in his dreams had been real, what did that mean for him? The first test. That evening, unable to resist, Vusi returned alone. The sun was sinking, the air cooler. Mist curled thick around the falls. The cattle were already driven home. He had no excuse for being there now. And yet his feet carried him forward, step by trembling step. The water glimmered, and then like a ripple becoming a wave, she appeared. Not fully, not yet, just a shape at first slender, graceful, half hidden by spray. Long hair floated in the water, gleaming like dark silk. Pale arms broke the surface for a heartbeat before sinking again. His breath caught. Who's there? He called, though his voice shook. Laughter answered him, soft and mocking, echoing strangely through the mist. His heart pounded. He should run. Every story said to run. But his feet would not move. Instead, he whispered, I saw you. The day I fell. Didn't I? The water stilled, almost listening. Then slowly she rose. The face in the water. The spray parted, and for the first time, Vusi saw her clearly. Her face was more beautiful than any dream. Skin smooth as riverstone, eyes deep and endless, lips curved in a smile that was both sweet and cruel. Her hair spread around her like a crown, each strand catching the fading light. She said nothing, only watched him. Vusi's chest ached. Every story, every warning screamed in his mind. Ndoni, run! She will kill you! But his feet stayed rooted. You saved me, he whispered. Her smile deepened, though her eyes did not soften. Yes, she said at last. Her voice like water flowing over rocks, smooth, musical, dangerous. And no, he frowned. What do you mean? She tilted her head. I did not save you for your sake, boy. I saved you because the river demanded it. Do not mistake the river's will for mercy. Her words chilled him, yet he could not look away. The pull between them. Silence stretched. The roar of the falls filled the air, but to Vusi it felt distant, drowned out by the pounding of his own heartbeat. Finally, he found his voice. Who are you? Her laugh was soft, bitter. You know who I am. His blood ran cold. Ndoni, he breathed. The name tasted dangerous on his tongue. Her eyes narrowed, though not with anger, with curiosity. Few dared to speak her name aloud. And yet this boy, weak and trembling, had dared. Instead of striking him down, instead of pulling him into the water and sealing his fate as she had done to so many before, she only smiled. Remember me, Vusi, she whispered, for the river does not forget. And with that, she sank beneath the surface, leaving only ripples in her wake. The aftershock. Vusi stood trembling, staring at the water long after she was gone. His chest heaved, his skin prickled with cold sweat. She was real. Not just a dream, not just a whisper. Real. And she knew his name. When he returned to the village that night, he said nothing. He ate little, his thoughts tangled. His mother asked if he was ill, but he shook his head. His father scolded him for his silence, but he did not answer. How could he? How could he tell them that the stories were true? That Ndoni was not only real, but watching him, speaking to him? And worst of all, how could he admit that though he was terrified, though he knew he should run, he could not stop thinking of her? The river's claim. In her watery world beneath the falls, Ndoni floated in silence, her long hair drifting like weeds. She should have killed him. She had meant to. When she rose before him, her lips had burned with the urge to kiss the life from his body, as she had done to countless men before. But when she tried, pain seared her, instead sharp, unbearable. His life was bound to hers now. She could not end him without ending herself. And that frightened her more than she would ever admit. Yet another feeling lingered, stronger still, one she had not felt in centuries. Curiosity. Why him? Why this weak, broken boy, mocked even by his own kind? Why did the river choose him? She closed her eyes, whispering to herself, to the spirits, to the gods who had cursed her so long ago. Why does the water remember him? But the river gave no answer. Only the endless roar of the falls filled her ears. The bond of pain. The days after that first meeting felt unreal to Vusi. He went about his chores as though nothing had changed, herding the cattle, fetching water, repairing the krail fence with his father. Outwardly, he was the same boy he had always been, but inside he carried a secret so heavy it twisted his every step. He had seen her, spoken to her. Not in a dream, not in a tale told by old women at the fireside. In flesh and breath. Ndoni. The fear that follows. Each night he tossed in his sleep. Her face hovered behind his eyelids, beautiful and terrible. Her voice like water rushing through the rocks. Sometimes she called his name. Sometimes she laughed. Sometimes she kissed him in his dreams, only for him to wake choking on air, convinced he was drowning. He began to fear sleep, yet he also longed for it, for those brief moments where she came to him. By day, he avoided speaking her name. Even when the square squad jeered, even when the old women whispered that death had marked him, he stayed silent. To name her in the open air was to risk summoning her, and he was not ready for that. But his silence did not protect him. Ndoni's restless watching. Beneath the falls, Ndoni seethed. She had tried again to end him. Slipping through the river at night, she had approached his hut, her form shifting easily into that of a mortal woman. She had touched the thatched walls, heard his mother's soft snoring, seen the faint glow of embers in the hearth. She had even leaned over his sleeping body. One kiss, one breath, and his soul would have been hers. But as her lips brushed his, the pain returned burning, searing, as though knives pierced her chest. She staggered back, gasping silently in the dark. For the first time in centuries, she had failed. She hated him for it, hated him for binding her, hated herself for feeling anything but rage. And yet, night after night she returned, to watch, to listen, to try to understand. Why him? Why this weak boy? The meadow confrontation. One afternoon, Vusi could bear it no longer. He drove his cows again to the waterfall meadow, though his father had told him to graze them elsewhere. He stood at the edge of the pool, staring into the depths. His hands trembled. "If you're real," he whispered, "if you truly saved me, show yourself." The water rippled. Mist curled around him, thicker than before, and then she rose, slow and deliberate, her form breaking the surface like the moon rising from the horizon. This time she did not hide. Her beauty struck him dumb, her long arms gleamed with droplets, her hair spread behind her like a living shadow, her eyes both inviting and cruel. "You called," she said simply, her lips curving in a smile. Vusi's chest tightened. "Why me?" Her head tilted, curious. "Why not you?" Because you kill men. That's what they say. Yet I'm still here." Her smile faltered. For a heartbeat, something like pain flickered in her eyes. "Do you wish you were not?" He faltered, searching for words. "No, but I don't understand." Her laughter was soft, bitter. "Neither do I." The pain of connection. She moved closer, water swirling around her waist. Her eyes never left his as she reached out a hand. "Come," she whispered. Against every instinct, against every warning echoing in his mind, he stepped forward. The water lapped at his feet, cold and biting. He reached for her hand, and as their fingers touched, pain ripped through them both. Vusi gasped, stumbling back. His chest ached as though pierced by knives. His knees buckled. Ndoni cried out, clutching her own chest. The agony mirrored his exactly. For long moments they stared at one another, breathing hard, the pain slowly fading. What? What was that? Vusi whispered. Her voice trembled when she answered. You are bound to me. If you hurt, I hurt. If you die... Her voice broke, soft as the mist. So do I. Vusi's blood ran cold. The square squad's suspicion. The next day, as he grazed his cows nearer the village, the square squad appeared again. Still alive? Themba mocked. Maybe she doesn't want you. Maybe you're too weak even for Ndoni. Their laughter was harsh, but Vusi ignored them. His heart was too heavy, his mind too full of questions. Still, their words stung. If they ever discovered the truth that she had spared him, that he had spoken to her, that they were bound, they would never leave him in peace. And worse, the village would turn on him. Whispers at the fire. That night, the elders told stories by the fire. Long ago, said one, a woman betrayed by love sold herself to the river spirits. She became Ndoni, most beautiful of all, most cursed of all. And from that day, no man who touched her lips ever woke again. The children shivered. The women crossed themselves. The men shook their heads. Vusi sat silently, the words burning into him. Every eye turned briefly toward him, the boy who had fallen, the boy who had lived. He looked away quickly, staring into the flames. Only he knew the truth of those stories now, Ndoni's doubt. Far below the falls, Ndoni sat on a rock worn smooth by centuries, her tail curled beneath her, her hair floating around her like a dark cloud. She hated the curse that bound her. She hated the men she destroyed, hated the ache of betrayal that never left her chest. For generations she had fed her vengeance, taking soul after soul, drowning her pain in theirs. But Vusi was different. Every time she reached for him, the river recoiled. Every time she tried to end him, her body betrayed her. And worst of all, every time he looked at her, truly looked, she felt something stir in her chest, something dangerously close to hope. Hope was forbidden. The gods had cursed her for her rage, for her bargain with the water. They would not let her heal. They would not let her love. And yet the bond was there. She could not deny it, the human world's temptation. 3 days later, Ndoni did something she had not done in over a century. She left the water. At dusk, when the light was soft and golden, she walked onto the riverbank in her human form. Her tail had vanished. Her legs, pale and strong, carried her across the grass. She wore a dress of woven reeds, glistening as though wet. She found Vusi sitting alone, mending a broken tool. When he looked up and saw her, his heart stopped. You, he whispered. She smiled faintly. Not so frightening when I walk the earth, am I? He shook his head, words failing him. Do not be fooled, she warned softly. I cannot stay. 3 days at most, and the river will drag me back. But I wanted to see your world again, through your eyes. And so she walked beside him, through the meadow, past the kraal, listening to the sounds of the village from a distance. Children's laughter, women's songs, the warm smell of cooking fires. For the first time in centuries, Ndoni felt almost human. And for the first time in his life, Vusi felt seen. The balance of the gods. But far above them, in realms unseen, the gods stirred. Ndoni's bond with Vusi had tipped the scales. A curse that had held for generations now bent in a new direction. Balance demanded reckoning. The gods whispered among themselves. Some wished to sever the bond. Others wished to strengthen it, to see where it led. But all agreed on one truth. This union could not exist without consequence. And soon the consequences would come. Between two worlds. The first night Ndoni walked on land, Vusi hardly slept. She had followed him as the sun dipped behind the hills, her reed-woven dress shimmering in the fading light, her steps soundless on the grass. He had led her cautiously, casting glances over his shoulder to make sure no one saw. His mother was cooking, his father sharpening tools, his siblings laughing in the kraal. The ordinary rhythm of village life pulsed all around them. But nothing about this night was ordinary. The secret shelter. Instead of leading her straight into his home, Vusi guided her to a small abandoned hut on the edge of the grazing fields. It had once belonged to an uncle who had long since passed. Now the roof sagged and the floor was choked with dust. Still, it was shelter, and more importantly, hidden. "You can stay here," he whispered, placing a woven mat on the ground. "If anyone sees you," his voice trailed off, throat tight with fear. Ndoni tilted her head, her dark eyes glinting. "Afraid they will know what I am." He swallowed. "Afraid they will know what you are to me." For a long moment, her gaze softened. Then she turned, walking slowly through the small hut, brushing her fingers across the walls as though relearning the feel of earth and clay. "It has been so long," she murmured. "I had forgotten the weight of dust, the scent of wood, the way the air is still, not full of rushing water." Her voice carried both wonder and sorrow. The village stirs. The next morning, whispers swept the village like fire through dry grass. A woman had been seen at the edge of the fields. Not one of the villagers, but a stranger beautiful, too beautiful, her skin glistening as though wet even under the sun. Some said she was a traveler. Others said she was a spirit. But the sharpest whispers carried her name, even if spoken only in hushed tones. Ndoni. Old women spat on the ground when they said it. Young men laughed nervously, pretending they did not believe. But the rumor sank deep, feeding both fear and fascination. And in the heart of it all, Vusi felt the walls close in. 3 days of breath. By the second day, Ndoni grew restless. Her steps slowed, her breath came heavy. She hid it well, but Vusi saw the faint tremor in her hands, the way her eyes darkened when she lingered too long away from water. "You're suffocating," he whispered one night, panic rising. She gave a bitter laugh. "I told you, 3 days. The river will not let me go longer." He stared at her, helpless. "Then why do this?" Her eyes met his, sharp and vulnerable all at once. "Because I wanted to know if I could still belong here. If I could stand on the soil and not feel cursed. If I could walk beside you, even for a little while." His breath caught. The weight of her words pressed against the hollow in his chest. The festival of rain. It was during those days that the village prepared for the festival of rain, an old celebration where offerings were given to the river spirits, asking for fertile soil and healthy cattle. The timing could not have been worse. On the night of the festival, the entire village gathered by the water. Drums beat low and steady, women sang, men danced with spears flashing in the firelight. Children laughed, throwing small flowers into the current. Vusi's stomach twisted. To bring Ndoni anywhere near this would be madness. But hiding her while the entire village crowded by the river was even harder. She appeared at his side as the music rose, her reed dress glowing in the firelight. The villagers gasped, some stepping back, others staring openly. "Who is she?" someone whispered. "Too beautiful. Not human." The square squad's eyes narrowed, recognition dawning. The confrontation. Themba pushed forward, his voice loud enough for all to hear. "Vusi," he shouted, "who is this woman? We have never seen her before. She does not belong here." All eyes turned to Vusi. His throat tightened. He wanted to lie, to say she was a traveler, to invent some story that would make sense. But Ndoni stepped forward, her presence silencing the crowd. "I am no stranger," she said softly, her voice carrying over the drums. "The river knows me. The land remembers me. I am as old as your stories." Gasps rippled through the people. Mothers pulled their children closer. Elders murmured prayers under their breath. One woman cried out, "Ndoni, it is her!" Chaos followed. Some shouted for her to leave, others demanded offerings. Still others fled in terror. Vusi's heart pounded. His worst fear was unraveling before his eyes. Pain shared. Themba, bold with the crowd at his back, pointed at her. "You will not curse us, River Witch. Leave this place." He picked up a stone and hurled it. The rock struck Ndoni's shoulder. She barely flinched, but Vusi cried out in pain, clutching his arm. The villagers froze, shock washing through them. "What is this?" whispered Gogotandi, her old eyes sharp. "They are bound." Murmurs spread like thunder. Some shouted for Vusi's death to break the bond. Others demanded Ndoni's banishment. Ndoni's face hardened, but when she looked at Vusi doubled over in pain, something flickered in her eyes. Sorrow, regret, a kind of fragile tenderness. The retreat. She grabbed his arm, pulling him away. The crowd surged, but none dared touch her. Together they fled into the shadows of the meadow, the drums still pounding behind them. When they stopped, Vusi collapsed, breathing hard. You feel everything I do," he gasped. Her jaw tightened. "Yes." "Then why stay near me? Why risk this?" For a long moment, she was silent. Then she whispered, "Because the gods have made you my balance. If you fall, I fall. If you live, I live. And perhaps," she hesitated, the word trembling on her lips, "perhaps you are my chance at something more." Her voice cracked on the last word. The gods stir. High above, unseen by mortal eyes, the gods murmured again. "Balance is shifting," said one. "The curse bends," said another. "Love is trying to bloom where only vengeance should dwell." They argued among themselves. Some wished to destroy Vusi to preserve order. Others wished to let the bond run its course, no matter the cost. And so they watched, waiting. For they knew the storm was only beginning. The truth in firelight. The festival had ended in chaos. Though the drums still echoed in the night air, though the smoke of burning offerings still rose above the river, the heart of the village had shifted. No one sang, no one laughed. All that remained was fear, sharp, raw, and ready to break into violence. And Vusi was at the center of it, the silence after the storm. He sat alone in the broken hut on the edge of the grazing fields, his chest tight, his mind turning over the night's events again and again. He had seen it clearly now, the truth no longer cloaked in mist. She was Ndoni. The very name whispered in terror. The reason men vanished. The shadow that haunted generations. The beautiful stranger he had fallen for was not a woman at all, but a curse. And yet, when she had reached for him, when she had pulled him from the crowd, when her eyes had filled with something dangerously close to tenderness, he had felt seen in a way no one had ever seen him before. That was the cruelest part of it all. Ndoni's confession. The door creaked, and she stepped inside. Her reed dress glistened faintly in the moonlight. "You hate me now," she said softly. He didn't look at her, his fist clenched in his lap. "You lied to me." "I never lied. You simply chose not to see." His jaw tightened. "You let me believe you were just a woman. A woman who saved me." "I did save you." Her voice broke. "But I am not just a woman, Vusi. I am what the river made me." Finally he looked up, anger flashing in his eyes. "And how many men have you destroyed? How many families left broken because of you?" She flinched as though struck. "Do you think I wanted this?" she whispered. "Do you think I asked to be betrayed, to be beaten, to die with my blood in the water and my spirit sold to vengeance? Do you think I dreamed of becoming this monster they named me?" Her voice rose, sharp and aching. "I was a woman once, a woman who loved, a woman who trusted, and he killed me for it." Her words hung heavy in the air. Vusi's anger softened, but only slightly. "That doesn't give you the right to punish everyone else," he said quietly. She turned away, her shoulders trembling. "I know." The village turns. The next morning, the village was not the same. Men gathered in tight groups, their voices sharp. Women fetched water with fear in their eyes. Children whispered songs of the river witch. The square squad stoked the fire. "You all saw it," Themba said loudly, standing at the center of the kraal. "He bleeds when she is struck. He cries when she is hurt. They are bound. And as long as she walks among us, no man is safe on." Others murmured in agreement. End it now, one elder said. End him, and the curse will die with him. No, shouted another. Banish her. Let the river take back what belongs to it. The crowd's voices rose, anger spilling over like a flood. Vusi's father stood silent, his jaw clenched, his eyes full of disappointment. His son had always been weak, but this was worse than weakness. It was betrayal. The father's wrath. That evening, when Vusi returned home, his father was waiting. You shame me, the old man said, his voice low and trembling with rage. The village whispers my name with scorn because of you. Do you not see what you've done? You have brought the curse into our home. Vusi bowed his head. Baba, I didn't. Do not speak, his father thundered. If you cannot cut her from your life, then you are no son of mine. His mother wept quietly in the corner, saying nothing. Vusi left without a word, his chest heavy with a grief deeper than any blow the square squad had ever given him. The breaking point. Back in the hidden hut, he confronted Ndoni again. You should leave, he said, his voice hollow. Go back to the river. End this before it destroys me. Her eyes searched his face. Is that truly what you want? He hesitated. His heart screamed no, but his mind said yes. Yes, he whispered. I want my life back. Silence fell. For the first time since she had met him, her expression broke completely. Her lips trembled, her eyes glistened. As you wish, she whispered. She turned and walked into the night, her figure dissolving into mist. The weight of absence. For 3 days, Vusi lived without her. He told himself it was better this way. He tended to the cattle, sat with his siblings, tried to smile at his mother's gentle words. He even forced himself to join the other young men at the river. But nothing filled the hollow inside him. When he slept, his dreams were empty. When he woke, the air felt too still, too lifeless. He had spent his whole life longing to be seen, and now that he had been, nothing else could compare. On the third night he broke, the return to the falls. He went to the waterfall, the moon high above, the air thick with mist. Ndoni, he shouted into the roar of the water, his voice cracked with desperation. I was wrong. Please, I can't do this without you. For a long moment there was only silence. Then the water stirred. She rose slowly, her hair gleaming, her eyes filled with something fierce and fragile all at once. You called me back, she said softly. He fell to his knees. I don't care what you are. Curse or not, I need you. Her breath caught, and for the first time in centuries, Ndoni wept. The village watches, but they were not alone. From the shadows of the trees, the square squad watched, their eyes wide. It's true, Themba whispered, awe and hatred mixing in his voice. He loves her. Jabu's jaw tightened. Then tomorrow, the whole village will know. They slipped away, their whispers carrying the promise of war. The reckoning at the falls. The dawn after Vusi's desperate cry to the waterfall. The square squad spread their whispers like poison. By the time the sun reached its height, the entire village knew. Vusi has taken Ndoni for himself, Themba declared to anyone who would listen. He calls her at the falls. He kneels before her like a husband. He betrays us all. The words struck fear and fury into the people. Mothers clutched their children closer. Fathers sharpened their spears. The old ones shook their heads, muttering prayers to the ancestors. By nightfall, the village had decided it would end. The gathering storm. They marched with torches in hand, the whole village moving as one toward the waterfall. The air buzzed with anger, the firelight flickering across grim faces. At the front strode Themba and the square squad, their pride swollen with the power of the crowd behind them. At the center of it all was Vusi's father, his face set in stone. He said nothing, but his silence was heavier than any shouted curse. Vusi, meanwhile, sat at the abandoned hut, Ndoni beside him. She sensed it before he did, the earth trembling faintly beneath the pounding of dozens of feet. "They come," she whispered. His stomach dropped. "Then we must run." She shook her head slowly. "There is no running from this." The accusation. The villagers spilled into the meadow, surrounding the hut in a ring of firelight. "There she is!" someone cried. "Ndoni! The river witch!" Ndoni rose slowly, her form glowing in the torchlight. Her beauty so sharp it silenced even the boldest. But the silence lasted only a heartbeat before the shouts returned. "Kill her! Break the bond! Take Vusi's life! End the curse!" Vusi stepped forward, his heart pounding. "No!" he shouted. "She is not what you think." His father cut him off, his voice booming. "You shame us, boy. You betray your blood, your people, your ancestors. This creature has taken countless lives. And still you defend her?" Vusi's throat tightened. "Because she is more than the curse. She is death," his father roared. The crowd cheered in agreement. The shared pain. Themba, eager for blood, hurled a spear. It struck Ndoni's side, and at once Vusi cried out, collapsing, clutching his ribs. Blood welled on her skin, and his tunic stained red as though the wound were his own. Gas tore through the crowd. The proof was undeniable. "They are one," whispered an elder. "Then kill him," another shouted. "End it for both." The mob surged, spears raised. The choice. Ndoni's eyes locked on Vusi's as the mob closed in. "I can end this," she whispered fiercely. "If I return to the water, if I take them all with me, they will never touch you." He shook his head desperately. "No, if you go back to vengeance, you lose yourself forever. And I cannot live knowing I brought you back to the darkness." Tears glistened in her eyes. She had not wept in centuries, and now the flood would not stop. "Then what do we do?" she asked. He rose shakily, his wound burning, his legs trembling. He faced the crowd, his voice breaking but clear. "Listen to me. You know me. You know I am not the strongest, not the bravest, not the one you would choose for anything. But she chose me, and I choose her." The crowd shouted in anger. Spears lifted higher. "Silence!" he roared, louder than he thought possible. His voice cracked across the meadow, echoing off the falls. The people froze. The story untold. Vusi's chest heaved as he spoke. "You speak of Ndoni as though she was born a monster. But do you know her story? Do you know how she came to be? She was a woman once, a woman betrayed by the man she trusted most. He beat her, left her to die, and the river spirits claimed her. Do you blame her for her pain? Do you curse her for her rage? Would you not have done the same had it been you?" The crowd shifted uneasily. Some lowered their spears. "She has killed, yes," Vusi said, his voice breaking. "But every man she destroyed was a reflection of the one who betrayed her. Until me. I am not her prey. I am her balance. And if you kill her, you kill me. If you kill me, you kill her. So what do you gain? More blood? More grief? Another mother's tears?" Silence fell heavy. The mother's voice. From the back of the crowd, a single voice rose soft, trembling, but strong enough to carry. It was Vusi's mother. She stepped forward, her hands trembling, her eyes glistening. "He speaks true," she said. "I have lost sons to the river, brothers, uncles. I know the pain, but I see my boy now, and he is not cursed. He is alive, alive in a way he has never been. Who are we to deny that? Who are we to decide that love must bow to vengeance?" The crowd murmured. Some nodded, some scowled. But the sharp edge of fury had dulled. The gods descend, and then the earth shook. The falls roared louder, the water glowing with an otherworldly light. Mist rose, thick and shimmering, and from it, voices thundered. The gods had come. "Ndoni," they intoned, their voices a chorus of river and storm. For centuries you have fed your vengeance. You have drowned men in your grief, consumed souls in your rage. But now you stand at the edge of a choice. What will you be? Curse or woman? Ndoni fell to her knees, trembling. I do not know how to be a woman anymore. Vusi knelt beside her, taking her hand despite the pain lancing his body. Then let me remind you. The gods' voices rumbled. And you, Vusi, you who are weak in the eyes of men, do you bear the weight of binding yourself to her fate? His voice shook, but he did not falter. Yes, for she is not weakness to me. She is the strength I never knew I needed. Silence fell. The water glowed brighter, the mist wrapping around them both. The transformation. The gods spoke once more. Then so be it, balance restored. Vengeance shall give way to love, if love endures. The mist surged, enveloping Ndoni. Her body convulsed, her cry piercing the air. The villagers shielded their eyes as light poured from her, brighter and brighter until it seared the night. When it faded, Ndoni stood trembling and changed. Her tail was gone. Her skin glistened not with water, but with tears. She was mortal once more. The crowd gasped. Vusi caught her as she stumbled, holding her close. The aftermath. For a long moment, no one moved. The falls roared, the torches hissed. The air hung heavy with awe. Then slowly the villagers lowered their weapons. Themba scowled, muttering, but even he dared not defy the god's will. Vusi's father stared long and hard at his son, his jaw tight, but he said nothing. It was Vusi's mother who moved first. She stepped forward, placing a trembling hand on Ndoni's shoulder. Welcome home, she whispered. And in that moment, the curse that had haunted the village for centuries dissolved into something new. The dawn of balance. When the sun rose the next day, the falls gleamed brighter than ever. The meadow was still, the village quiet. For the first time in living memory, there were no whispers of fear, no curses muttered, no offerings thrown in dread. Only a story of a boy too weak to be chosen, and a woman too cursed to be loved, who together defied gods and men. And though not all forgave, and not all forgot, the balance had shifted. Vusi and Ndoni walked hand in hand, fragile but unbroken, carrying with them both the pain of the past and the hope of what might yet be. For love, the gods had declared, was the only power strong enough to rewrite a curse.